we got quite a few ages. Yes, Joan?
Okay, oops, someone started the recording. Okay. I just wanted to tell Nikki that we're going to be in the breakout groups for 35 minutes today, and I will go into group 5 instead of group 1.
Okay. All right, so Joan, you're organizing those groups right now?
And I haven't started yet. Oh, I forgot we had to do it right at the beginning. The problem is that not everybody is here, so I don't know how many facilitators do we have, Jess? You, myself, Octavio. Yeah, it's 5.
Kurt and Vahid, so we have 5 minimum. All right, guys, so officially I want to welcome you to week 2. How is everybody? Are we good?
Real good, real good.
Awesome. Changing the world, no doubt. It's great to see everybody. I'm in Brady Bunch mode, so I get to see all your faces on 2 screens here, so it's pretty cool. Had a really fun time hanging out in our Change Agent Cafe, virtual cafe, last Saturday. That was fun. Had a couple of youth join. And so I'm thinking that if that works really well, we'll do that again this Saturday. If you guys want to do that, we can talk about more art and do some projects. In the meantime, what I do want to do, I'm going to share my screen. We're going to be jumping into groups pretty quickly, but before we do that, we do have a special guest today as well. So while Joan gets our group set up, and by the way, thank you for adding your ages in front of your names. That's very helpful. So I thought I'd throw in a piece of your Change Agent art for our cover today. So again, welcome to Unit 2. This is where we're going to be looking at a paradigm shift and understanding our reality. Our guest speaker is Vahid Masroor. He's actually going to be presenting on the second half of our unit, and he's also going to be facilitating one of our breakout groups. So Vahid Masroor is a world citizen that has lived in 7 countries so far. Originally trained as an organizational psychologist, he has worked in nonprofit and for-profit as a project manager and is currently interested in a couple of questions. What should 21st century education systems look like? And 2, how can we cultivate the mindsets for world civilization building? So absolutely fantastic questions. If you guys have any of those answers, please let Vahid know because he's looking for that. He has worked with Anello and Hernandez Transformative Leadership since the 90s. And so the second half of our presentation today, of actually our day together, will be his presentation on 200 years of progress, the integration process. Okay, so so far, Vahid, do you want to say hi to everybody?
From Switzerland.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to learn a lot about the questions I've been asking myself through this workshop. So I look forward to having a conversation with the small group I'll be in, the breakout group I'll be in, and then we'll see what questions come up with my presentation. So I'm looking forward to that. Thank you so much for having me.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for being here. And Vahid's he's actually one of the essential members of our TL team. So we would not even actually be here with the technology or anything without Vahid. So pretty cool dude and a change agent. So let's see here. Any questions from you guys? Anyone have anything they'd want to share? Anything? What about a change story? So we've spent a week with our learning. Who has a change story? And do you want me to remind you of what a change story is? Cyrus, do you have a change story?
I can't do this.
Okay, you're fine, Joan. Cyrus, do you have a change story?
No.
No, do you remember what it is?
No.
No. So in essence, a change story is basically what you've experienced with the learning. So, it's very similar to share what you've learned. but it's like, how have you applied your learning in action? So has anybody taken some of the content we did last week? And so, oh, I see someone with a thumbs up. Sharush, do you have one? Hit your microphone.
That was just accidental, it just appeared.
Oh, I was really excited. I was like, yeah, you're sharing. So like, let's say, do you guys remember the 3 group functions from last week? The 3 group functions that lead to success? Everyone's like, what? What did we do last week? Yes, Joey.
Yes, yes, yes.
What? You didn't raise your hand? No? Okay, so Kian, was that you?
Yeah, about the 3 group functions.
Okay, could you share?
Yeah, it was talking about like first of all there was consultation between a group and seeing everyone's perspectives of their own opinion of a certain subject. So how people see a certain subject from different points of views, and then having a united consultation and ending up with one joint very good result of all of those opinions, I guess.
Oh, yes, yes. So that we did a effective group consultation. We learned about some of the qualities or the guidelines for consultation, and then what qualities can be manifested when we follow those guidelines. Is that right? Does that sound, that's what you're talking about? That's fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So, you know, I want to just encourage you all to just really hold a space for the learning that we're doing. A lot of this can feel maybe intense, maybe it's not super clear, but within this process of learning, it's literally just that. It's a process. It takes time, you know. And what I have found is that when I actually practice the different forms of art, that's when my learning is actually integrated more solidly within myself. Joan, how you doing? Is it good?
Yeah, we can go for it.
Okay, so we are going to move into groups. We are going to try our similar age groups, and we'll just see how this goes. And I guess have a wonderful reading, and we will see you when you're back.
And I'm putting you in 5, Joan, when you're done.
Yeah, okay, I'm not sure how to put people into rooms that weren't there at the beginning when I started putting them in.
You should find them at the top, unassigned.
I know I see them, there's 3 of them, but I don't know what to do with them.
Go to the right and click, if you hover over their name at the right, you should see the thing that says move to room, and you just move them to the room.
Bother, I'm not seeing it. I'm just seeing make host, make co-host, allow record, and all that sort of stuff.
Okay.
Like there's Hennessy here.
In the breakout rooms list, not in this list.
Okay.
Hennessy, how old are you?
Hi, I'm 16.
You're 16. Okay.
He'll go into 5. Now, how do I get him into 5?
So can you go to the breakout list and look at the top of the breakout list?
The top of it? Unassigned. Ah, yes. There we go.
There they are.
But it didn't show them to me.
It's at the top.
Yeah. Do I click on the number? Oh,
click
there we go.
Click on where it's on the right side.
Yeah. Okay. Assigned to breakout room 1. Okay. I'm learning.
Can I call you back?
Sure. Thank you. It's Helen.
Hennessy, assigned to breakout room 5. And Nikki, I don't assign, so I am going to pass
Give
you
me the
host name before I forget. And then, yes. Okay. See you in about half an hour.
Okay, there I have it. So I'm going to put you in 5.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, so hold on before you go.
Hello, everybody.
Hello again.
Oh, we didn't finish.
That's okay. That's okay. Those of you that didn't finish, our group didn't finish yet either. We had a couple more to go through. We'll have some time tomorrow. So we will also still have, we have Eric tomorrow as well. So those music group people will be doing that with Eric. So we'll work on that. You all are welcome to go into the classroom, access your reading, and you can go ahead and read it on your own. Another option is to share it. You know, maybe someone in your family, you could read it with them. So that would be a fantastic option. Okay. All right.
We talked about that just,
Oh.
Jessica, just wanted to reinforce what you just said. We talked about that just as we were finishing up in our group. There are a lot of complex concepts in this reading, and I think it would be great for everyone to read through again, maybe read through with somebody, and it'll all sink in much better before the next time we're together.
Right. And so because of those really complex concepts, I encourage you just to hold a space and be patient with that. And then in addition, Vahid's going to be sharing his slideshow. And so there's basically that we have a twofold purpose here. So our reading and then our slideshow. So if you have questions during the slideshow, feel free to write them down. You know, so again, this is a 2-day process that we're looking at this. We have plenty of time. So Vahid, are you ready to go?
Yes, I can unmute myself, so therefore I'm ready to go. So I wanted to share some thoughts about this idea of the process of integration. It's been my experience that sometimes some people that are not aware of these processes have a hard time making sense of where we are at in history. And so in order to do that, I've put together some slides from different authors and different perspectives that help us analyze this. So I'm going to share my screen right now, and we can look at a few slides together. All right. So I guess everybody can see that all right now?
That's great.
So it's particularly interesting because we are, for the Baha'is at least, we are at the point where we have celebrated the 200 years since the birth of Baha'u'llah and the Bab, and it's interesting to look at human history and the progress that has happened in the last 200 years, and then compare this progress that we've had in human knowledge, in human affairs, in human materials activities, and then think how this is a push towards the process of integration. So in order to do that, I'd like to share a few points. First of all, I think everybody understands, and everybody in this group understands this idea that the world economy is already united. This is a fact. This is something that we deal with every day. And in the US, with the current crisis we're looking at, when we're discussing that there's a lack of masks or a lack of respirator ventilators, we understand that this is a problem that we have locally, but it's also a problem that we have as a whole humanity. And this is a problem because the factories that are producing those items might be far away from us, and we are waiting for those items to get into our country. But we understand that it's natural at this point to say that the economy is global. We are living in a supply chain that unites the whole world. And so let's think about how this has come about. So there's a little video that explains how humanity has evolved in the last 200 years. And I'd like you to look at it. It's going to take a couple of minutes. What it does is here on the y-axis, it's showing us the life expectancy or the average life expectancy in different countries. So we're going to see small bubbles growing. They're representing different countries and their population and how they grow on the X side. So how they grow in terms of life expectancy, meaning how the average person in a country, how long they live, how many years they live. And it starts at around 30 years of life expectancy. and we're going to see how far it gets in the past 200 years. And at the same time, we are going to look at one indicator of economic growth, which is the income per person. It's not a perfect information, but we're going to see what the evolution has been in the past 200 years. So I'm going to play the video now. And so this is the data at in 1,800. So the larger bubbles are countries that have a larger population, and the smaller bubbles have a smaller population. And you can see that all the countries in the 1800s have an average of about 30 years of life expectancy. So the average person would die at around 30 years old. And you can also see that most countries had about $1,000 of income per person per year. So by the 1900s, we see that some countries are progressing towards 50 years of life expectancy, and some countries are also growing. We just saw the fall from World War I, and now we're approaching World War II, and we're seeing that some countries are progressing a lot in terms of life expectancy, and also they're progressing a lot in terms of income. So we see a whole list of countries that are increasing their income tremendously. And we also see that all the countries are above 50 years of life expectancy. And so this graphic finishes at 2014-15. And we see that practically all countries in the world now have achieved a life expectancy of higher than 50 years old. And most countries are really between 70 and 80 years old. So if you remember at the beginning in 1800, life expectancy was at around 20 to 30 years old. And now it is between 70 and 80. So how much have we expanded life expectancy in 200 years as an average? Have we duplicated it? Have we tripled it? We're somewhere in that ballpark, right? We have the progress humanity has seen is such that we have, in many cases, tripled the life expectancy in the countries we live in. And in terms of economics, we've gone from $1,000 per person of income in the different countries to 5 times and sometimes many times more of income per person per year. And this is taking into account already inflation. So that means that we have generated, the world's economy has generated a lot more of income for each individual in terms of money that's made available to each individual. So that's one way to look at the progress humanity has made in 200 years. We have tripled life expectancy as an average, and we have multiplied many times over the average income of people in the world. So we're going to see that it's not a perfect picture, but there's been tremendous change in humanity's life. Another source of change that's very significant is how many people can read in the world. So we call that world literacy. There are research that says that in 1800s, about 15% of humanity could read. So that's the green area right here in 1800. It's about 15% of humanity that could read. By now, in 2014, it's about 85 or 86% of humanity that can read. So that's another very significant change. Maybe the most powerful change that humanity has seen is that lots and lots more people can read now than ever in human history. And that allows us to do our own research of truth, our own investigation of reality. We can conduct that because we are enabled to have access to the rich source of written knowledge that the world has produced. So that's another important source of change. And if you look at it, basically we've inverted the numbers. So 85% of humanity could not read in 1800. And by 2000 some years, so 200 years later, and now 85% of humanity can read. We still have lots to do to finish ensuring that 100% of humanity can read, but this is a tremendous evolution that we've achieved in just 200 years. So there's one guy that has given a lot of thoughts regarding that progress, and you can look it up. He has a bunch of talks on YouTube. He's called Peter Diamandis, and he's done a lot of research around what the progress of humanity has been in the past years. And another form of measuring the progress is how much time we have to work. So in different countries, this will vary, but this applies to the US, France, Japan, and Brazil. It shows how much work one had to do every week to, or per year in this case, to achieve, to get a salary. And we can see that in all countries, all these countries, the amount of work that had to be done has decreased, meaning we need to work less and less to have the income we need, or let's say a decent income. So we work less, but we have more income available. Another tremendous change that has happened is that it used to be, and it used to be up until the early 1900s, so the 20th century, that having a child was a very dangerous affair. So women might die when they were giving birth, and of course the babies could die themselves also. And so this has changed tremendously. Now it's very rare in most countries around the world that giving birth is a danger to a woman's life. But it was very different before that. It was really kind of a Russian roulette whether you would be able to make it through birth, either the baby or the mother. But this has changed tremendously through the progress that we have seen of science and the application of that science. And so the same applies to the babies. Now it's also very rare for babies to be dead at birth, but it was that was very different 100 years ago. And so there are different aspects of medicine that has allowed for this evolution. One is, of course, instituting the cleaning of water. That has been one of the most significant changes in humanity when we have made accessible good sources of water for large population. This changed tremendously how humanity deals with illness. It has lowered the amount of illnesses that we face. And then there are different vaccines that also have changed completely the risk we're exposed to and have diminished the risks that humanity faces. And so now we're facing with a pandemic, but if you look at it, we're still counting the death in terms of a few thousands. We're not counting the death in the range of millions, which used to be the rule. And then when you discuss poverty, that's a little bit more controversial, but you could say that less and less people are suffering extreme form of poverties. Again, this changes a lot between countries, but as a whole, the world has made tremendous progress and is still making progress on the goal of diminishing poverty. And then the other source of change that we studied about in the documents is the idea that we are now all connected physically. So as you read in Shoghi Effendi's writings and in Baha'u'llah's writings and in Transformative Leadership, the idea that we are evolving into a united world is made very practical when you consider the ways of transportation, the modes of transportation that we have available. So you have roads, you have airplanes that can take us to different places. And you have, of course, the possibility of communication that we've never had in history before. So this is a tremendous change that we had a hard time imagining 200 years ago. So again, that's something to consider when we're discussing how much the world has changed. In consideration for the time, I just want to mention one more statistic that's interesting. Did you know that the people that die in warfare has diminished in the world? So there's at least a couple of studies from different universities that indicate that less and less people are dying through direct warfare in the world. And so in one way, you can say that the world has evolved into being more peaceful, even though we get all those bad news about firearms and weapons being used. as a whole, humanity is less exposed to warfare than it was a few decades ago. So when you consider all that, what is changing or what changes are coming in the world is an interesting question to have. So in terms of technology, it looks like we're moving towards free or very low cost power, accessing power that we need through renewables, be it wind, sun, and other forms of power, is taking us closer in the next 20 or 30 years to the idea that power will be essentially free or very low cost. Not like we have high expenses in terms of generating power right now. So there are more data about this. I'm not going to go into all details. Another idea that is potentially transforming in our material reality is the idea that we are going towards autonomous transportation. So transporting merchandise and goods from one place to another is going to be automated. So that's also a big change because it makes the access to goods a lot easier around the world. And then you have the possibility of robots handling most or all of industrial production. So if that happens, how does that change the world we are living in? If we can just tell robots, okay, produce me these tools, how does that change the world we live in? And does that solve problems or cause problems? That's a topic for discussion that we won't get into today. And then you have the idea that we could fabricate houses very quickly. How about being able to build houses in 24 hours? How does that sound? How does that solve the crisis of housing that we are dealing with? And what would happen if that's a technology that's made available and very cheap around the world? So how does that change our connections, our living together as human beings? So those are questions. And then there's the possibility that we are moving towards making easier to produce food than it's ever been in history with less human work. So that's another thing to consider. I don't think we'll have time to discuss all that. But I've been discussing all of technology so far, if you've noticed. But I'd like to share with you a couple of quotes, and maybe we can finish on that. Here is Sundar Pichai. He's the person in charge of Google. He's the CEO of Google. And he has this phrase. He says, technology doesn't solve humanity's problems. So I'd like to invite you to think, and this is a question I want to ask you, why do you think maybe one of the highest authorities on technology in the world says that technology doesn't solve humanity's problems? And then there's this other citation, you might have come across it on the internet. It says, I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems, but I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that. So I'd like you to, maybe we can have a short discussion now, but I'd like you to think about why the head of Google and this other scientists are saying that science technology is not going to solve humanity's problems. And that we've discussed the tremendous, I've presented to you a large number of information that shows how technology, how medicine, how the communication and transportation technology has changed and is bound to change in the coming years. But why do these people say that this is not enough? What is missing from this picture? So maybe we can have a quick discussion about that, Jessica?
Yeah, that'd be fine. So we are a little bit over. You guys are welcome to stay on. If for whatever reason you do have to log off, that's okay. Vahid, I'd love to put your presentation in our cafe, our Change Agent Cafe. So we will have these threads ongoing. So those of you who aren't able to contribute, we can have another space for that. So in the meantime, though, this is really relevant and this is really important. Does anybody have any ideas, any answers or suggestions for Vahid's question as to why do we think humanities, technology, and science isn't going to solve the problems, our current problems?
Yes, looks like there's a comment from Ava.
Yes. Ava says, well, technology doesn't have the social or spiritual capabilities that humanity does. It can't control the selfish desires of human beings or provide spiritual teachings and morals.
Spot on.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Ava, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to add? You can either put it in the chat box or just share.
This also kind of reminded me of the harmony of science and religion, and kind of how you can't just count on religion to solve all of the world's problems or to make discoveries, but at the same time, you can't only count on science. So I think computer science and technology kind of falls into that category as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, having the unity of both of those aspects of investigating our reality is essential. Wonderful. Anyone else? So
like Sonia wants to say something.
Thank you, thank you. Go ahead.
Sonia, would you like to say something? Nope.
And there was a hand up I saw. Let's see, who was that? Alex?
No, it was nothing.
Okay, if you change your mind, you can post it in our chat or you can post it on our thread, on our forum. So guys, I invite you guys to really think about these things. On our day one, where there's a creative writing exercise where you're invited to write a letter to someone 100 years ago, or maybe even 200 years ago if you want to go that far, and follow those directions and see maybe you can, it can come out in your words. Thomas says technology can not control who uses it. Humans have to manage and control how technology is used and how it was used. Excellent, Thomas. Beautiful. Wonderful. All right. Okay, so Vahid, thank you so much. Apologize for the short of time that we have in general, because we probably could have just, really gotten into this further. We will continue our readings tomorrow for those of us who didn't finish, but I do encourage you to take the readings and share with a family member and read tonight. Does anybody have any additional comments or feedbacks? Maybe our facilitators?
Oh, just a thanks to Vahid. Well done.
Yeah, it's really important.
I just wanted to know if all of you know how to download the readings. Is there anyone who doesn't know how to download them so you can have them on your computer or your cell phone?
So if you guys need some help with that, definitely message and we can walk you through it or create a tutorial and post it in the Change Agent Cafe. All right, guys, I appreciate the extra time that you guys stayed on. Tomorrow, just a heads up, we have our music group tomorrow. Eric will be joining us. The idea is these concepts that we're learning now, and then also last week's learning, we want to use that as inspiration for our creative endeavors. So those of you in the music group, let's maybe contemplate how this learning can be translated through your music. So if you plan to join the music group tomorrow, be prepared to let us know, and we will work on that as we break out tomorrow, and we will still finish our questions and our reading. Thank you, everybody. So good to see you. Thank you, facilitators. Thank you, Vahid.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.